Hi and welcome to a new video series for the Visio Guild. I am the Visio Guild leader, Ton Castele. In this series, we'll be analyzing some visual overview solutions and see where we can improve them, what's already great, pretty much trying to give a hands-on example of what a visual overview solution should and could look like, and give you some tips and tricks to improve yours as well. Big thanks to Tommy Hexeberg, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, from Telenor. He sent us in this first submission. I have to say it's a really amazing visual overview solution with a lot of different functionalities and features used. Yeah, let's dive right into it and take a look at what he created and what we can improve. Right, so let's start with the main overview for the setup at Telenor. What we will be doing is editing the Visio, but we will be duplicating the page so that I don't interfere with the existing solution. So I will duplicate the main page here. And I'll just call it main Skyline communications, so it doesn't interfere with the setups they have. So this is the visual overview. Let me just give you a quick overview in Cube itself. You can see a side panel here with info on the different subviews here, and some access links, things like that, the alarming in there. We also have a bunch of different parameters. And then the first very good thing I noticed here is this children shape, which shows alarms. And the option it has on it, namely on the child of this, on the children shape itself, we have the lazy loading option. As you can see, it's quite small and you have a lot of shapes in here. So the scroll bar here, it shows as if it's not too many items, but really there's quite a bit. And there's lazy loading, so we don't load them all into the view structure, so it's more performant for the initial loading as well. So that's the first thing I noticed already. Not really a tip but for Tommy, but a tip for the others. Try to use lazy loading if at all possible. Another thing I noticed then is there are several subpages here, and some of them contain links to dashboards. I want to note that in the system center of this DMA, there is also a setting in the system settings. And then in the plugins, you can find the default web browser engine. It's already set to Chromium, so using the use Chrome option here doesn't really do much, except for when we would change this setting. So maybe that's intentional, I'm not sure, but probably we could just leave out the option. The first bigger, more performance-oriented thing I noticed was that many of the shapes here are linked to the EPM front-end element. Right here, we have like 10 shapes. All of them are linked to the EPM front-end element, but just different parameters that we want to see. Let's say at some point they change the name of their element to something else. That would mean they'd have to go through all of the visual overviews and kind of replace all of the elements one by one, or select all of them and hope Visio doesn't mess this up as we rename it here. But the better thing to do is to just remove them from all of the shapes. And then we can group them all together. Define shape data, set it to elements, EPM front end, and then we can save. And let's take a look. as we upload. You'll notice all of the info is exactly the same, so nothing really changed here. However, we now have one reference for the element, so if we ever rename it or whatever, we can just, as you can see, there's no element in here anymore, but there is on the group. We can just rename it here. Another option would be to actually initialize a variable when opening the page that initializes to the ID or the name of the element, and then reuse that variable. Then we don't have to group the shapes. We can just use the var placeholder in every single one of the shapes, and when we want to change the element name, we change it in the init var. So that's kind of a different way to tackle it. It's mostly useful if you have, as is also the case here, shapes located all over. And here it's all top level, so you can still group all of them. But if you would have them sometimes in a group and sometimes not, you probably want to use the variable so you can actually replace them all at once. All right. Another thing worth highlighting, very good usage here, is the theming and the hover type that Tommy applied. It's actually so commonplace, or it should be so commonplace right now, that we actually added it in the advanced editing panel, where you can just click these on the page if you have the page selected. So here you don't have it. But if you're on the page, you can just click the three buttons here. You can add the theming and add the pretty hover, which is the hover type geometry, to your page. So that means your users using the black theme can also enjoy some nice visual overviews. And for the hover type, it means things like the rounded shapes, if I can find one somewhere, should show decently. Yeah, I don't really have an example right now. But if you have round shapes or things like that, the hover should show properly as well. Actually, earlier when I changed from EPM, when I changed it here, it didn't show the right page. So I still have something to fix, meaning here, this needs to be disabled because I linked them all to the element, but I did not disable the shape, so it will open the element if I click it. So let me just set enable to false and save. And there we go. Now I can't click this anymore. One more thing I noticed is the trend graphs. Beautiful usage of the range trend variables, so we can link these graphs together. Let me just show you how it works for those that don't know. This is a really great feature that allows you to actually use multiple trend graphs, so you don't have to stack them on top of each other and create a mess. And you can just link them together to show the same range. So how does it work? We have a set var here, which uses the keyword range start, and then the name of the variable you want to set, and the same for the ending. And then for all of them, we also have the range filled in here, where the start is var start and the end is var end, which means that whenever I change one of them, the others will change as well. So this goes for all of these trend graphs. So they are all linked together. One thing I do want to note, though, if I were to open this view again in an undocked card, or there's other views as well that use these same variables, Tommy tried to avoid them updating by setting the page variable option here. However, the variable he's referencing here is a global one, so it's just var. And the trend graphs set them globally. They set them globally, but also on the page and also on the card, which means that if you want to limit it to the card or to the page, you should actually set it to page var. Let me show you why this does not work. If I navigate here, you can see the trend graphs behind it are also moving. And I don't think you want that. So that's why in here we will just take all of these and change it to page var and here as well. Just verify if it applied to all of them. Yes. And if I now save this, in the meanwhile, I will close. Well, let me just leave it open so you can see. So I'm loading my trend graphs and updating the Visio. I also want to highlight I'm doing this over the cloud connection, which is really great since I don't have to set up a VPN or whatever to access the setup. So yeah, the cloud connection has become really stable lately. Really enjoying being able to use it. So now I can pan here, and you can see here in the background, it does not change. Another thing I noticed in the trend graphs is the use of wildcards, where you don't actually want to use them or you think you're not using them. It's an oversight that is easily made here with adding a trend graph with index 1 on this column and index 1 on this column. Here as well, but on index 3, 4, and 5 of the same column. It's not exactly the same. Anyway, and here we actually do want a wildcard. But for these two, what will happen is the Cube application will send a message to the server first to get keys that match with this as a wildcard. To avoid that, if we know exactly what we want to show, we can just use the no wildcard option. And here as well. And that means that now it doesn't have to go back and forth, and it can immediately get the trend data for the right key. There we go. And it's the same trend data, it just loads a bit quicker. Right, that's it for the main overview. So yeah, I don't always have that much to say. There's some small improvements, but really overall it makes very good usage of some features like the range linking, the lazy loading, things like that. Right, we have the main overview down. That's probably the biggest chunk because some of the remarks will come back here and there. But let's move on to the services overview. So let me open it up. Again, very creative use of features. The alarm timeline is on here, which I don't see that often, and it's very useful because it shows some nice statistics. You can customize it very heavily. So yeah, it's very good usage. The first thing I noticed, let me just edit the Visio. It's just an oversight. It won't change much to the actual functionality because it's shape data that does not exist. Just waiting for it to show here. So I'm gonna go down in my children shape. Maybe a quick tip as well. If you have trouble getting into your groups, use the Drawing Explorer. Let me show you how to enable it. If you go to your options, and then go to Advanced. This is also part of the Visio course. You can mark Run in Developer Mode here. Click OK. And then you should get this tab. And you can mark the Drawing Explorer here to have it open up. And you can dock it anywhere. First, I'm going to duplicate my page again, just to make sure. And then what I wanted to show was if you go through the Drawing Explorer, find the group shape, which happens to be this children shape. You can open it up easily and you can find the overarching child shape. If I go into that one again, I find some info on the child shape. So there's the whole square thing, then the name that is being shown, the service statistics with the amount of alarms, and then this one. However, this shape will automatically be linked to the service because we are listing them through the child type, and all of these shapes will automatically be linked to the service. And secondly, the service type shape does not actually exist. We use the element shape data here. You can also see it in the advanced editing. It's not known DataMiner shape data, so we have to enter element here. But actually, as a whole, we just don't need it because it's automatically linked. So this should show the alarm color out of the box. And then there's also this shape, which is transparent and has the shape data. So I would just remove this shape. And if I save it, it looks the exact same. So this will be the overview that we had. So just simple alarm coloring here. And then in the updated version, it's going to be the same thing. There. All right. Again, here we can group together a lot of different shapes to improve the reusability. So these are all linked to the front-end EPM element. So again, you can group all of these together. I'm not going to do it though, because I already showed you. And that's it for the services overview, pretty much. That's the main thing I could find was the service shape data. Let's move on to our next view, which is the EPG view. Let's see what Tommy did there. What you'll see here, and this is really a great thing to see, is that Tommy has been reusing the same visuals and the same style over his different visual overviews. It gives a nice flow, gives a nice look and feel. So I definitely recommend that. The only thing though is that I've seen this panel, for instance, as well as the header, a couple of times now already, especially this panel. If you want to change something to it, you have to change it in every view because it's just copied over to every visual overview. I'm going to show you how to actually change that so you can reference it once. It comes at a small memory and performance loss because we need to load in the Visio file it comes from every time rather than just the one we're opening. But still though, I would really recommend doing that since you'll see it doesn't really give that much of a problem. So let's open this Visio and do one of the bigger changes. So what I'll do is very simple. I will copy all of this over into a new page. Let me call it site panel. And select everything, cut it out, and paste it here. Now what I want to do to make sure the size is correct is I want to select the outer shape. And I want to see the shape sheet. I can right click for that and go to the shape sheet here at the top, or I can show it through the developer tab. Let me just open it up. I'm gonna close these other overviews from earlier. I don't really need them right now. Maybe I'll keep the service one to show you how I can embed this panel later. But what I need here is this, the width and the height of the panel. So I'm gonna set mine to 51 and 218 to make sure I have enough room. So for that, I right click in the side panel, I go to page setup, page size, and here I customize the size to 51 in width and to 218 in height. Apply, and you'll see indeed it more or less matches. I'm just gonna put it nicely in the top right. Select everything and just put it up there. There. And you can see I have some room left, but you'll notice once I embed it, it really won't matter. because I will also set this shape to the exact same size. So not the size of the content, but the size of the page to make sure it matches exactly. So for that, I need another rectangle. But I can actually just copy this one. Maybe that's the easiest thing to do. There. Make sure it's positioned correctly. And then I will open the shape sheet again and change these to 51 into 218. So that's the size, and now I need to link it to the right page. For that, I will set the view shape data to this view, which will be replaced by the name of the view, EPG, and then VDX page, and set that one to side panel, which is the name of the page I want to embed. Let me save it. And actually, I did not duplicate this page. Luckily, I have the Visios backed up. So the side panel is loaded here. And you can see it looks exactly the same as it was before. The only thing I want to do is hide the side panel, of course. It's very simple to do. Also, kind of want to move this so it's better. There we go. To hide the side panel, I need to set the options shape data on the page and set it to hidden. Save it. And there we go. I have my EPG view in the exact same way I had it before. Let me just set back the actual page, the original page. Just to make sure I still have it. Deleted this shape. I'm not sure why I switched windows here. And then on the side panel, I will copy and paste everything again. And save it. So now I've put it back. And we are good to go. So that's it for this view. Other than that, I can show you as well how to embed it in the other view. It's gonna be the exact same thing. Just gonna copy over this panel, go to the main services. I still have the view open, so it should update immediately. Make sure I'm on the right page, and then I will select everything here. However, you'll notice that there's some extra shapes on here, so these three I will not delete. The active alarms, though, is on there, I think. Yeah. So everything else is the same. I can just delete all of these, paste the panel. And instead of setting it to this view, of course, I want to set it to the EPG view directly. And now this should still look the same, but you'll see the loading come up. That's the trade-off, but it's really quick and you get a nice overview that is way easier to handle. These controls are not okay yet, probably because they are in the back. So I'll move this to the back. So now I should be able to select these. There we go. And now the panel is exactly the same. Next, let's move on to the fixed wireless access view. Okay, let's take a look at the fixed wireless access view, as we said. Let's open this up, see what we have. So here, it's still loading. It's getting trend keys. Again, the no wildcard option might help here, but I'm not gonna dive into that one. We have a couple of pages here as well. I'll get to that later. We have a tab control here, or what looks like a tab control. And that's the first thing I'm gonna be looking at. So let me open up the visual overview, or the Visio file, at least. Go to the main page, let's duplicate it. And here we see how this tab control works. It has a setVar as a button which sets the active trend to max bitrate in this case. We use the same control, we use a show height condition. Why? Because if you have it selected, we want to show the blue colored one. So this one also has a show height, but the other way around. And then we do the same for the different ones. And here we have a bunch of shapes stacked on top of each other to show the different trend graphs. Again, there's the variable thing here, but I'm not gonna go into that. Here you can see the show condition, which should be the max bitrate if you want to show this one, and so on. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of this. One reason, the main reason, is that we are loading in more shapes than we should. So while we are not showing most of the shapes, they are being loaded. So it takes a bite out of performance and memory. The same goes for these buttons, just extra work to make all of these and maintain them. So what we could do instead is just use the out-of-the-box tab control from Visual Overview. For that, we will need to move these trend components. Let me just cut one out, make a new page, and we'll call the page exactly the name of the trend component. So it's percentage of max bitrate or something. Let me check to be sure. Percentage of max bitrate. Like this. And just like for the previous view, I will be resizing this to match the size of the trend. So here it's 183, I will take a 95. So the page should be 183 and 95. There. I have to move the shape again. There we go. Again, some overlap. That's okay. We're not worried about that. And we can remove the show condition, because in this case, we just always want to show the trend graph. I can remove this one, because it's the same graph, and I can move on to the next. Just cut this one out. I will duplicate this page so I have the right size. Paste the trend graph, the other trend graph on it. Remove the show condition. And rename this one to stalled, which is the name of the tab, and also the trend graph. Here we have the profile change. So let's cut this one out as well. Duplicate, rename to profile. Paste this one. I took the trend graphs from the wrong page, so let me just paste them on here. I will be putting the Visios back, of course. Just want to make sure I'm not removing anything anyway. Now we have the profile page. It should be profile changed or change. Yeah, change. remove the show condition, of course, and move on to the next one, which is the bitrate 5 megabit per second. Remove the show condition, and then finally we have the 8 megabit per second one. Duplicate, remove this shape, paste the other one, and rename the page. Now I have this, but I actually want to get rid of the tabs as well, because they set variables right now and I don't need those. So I made the white area a bit larger. You'll see why in a second. And I'm going to select all of these buttons here, remove them. And all I really need to do now is define shape data and then set it to VDX page. And then I need to list all of my tab names. Percentage of max bitrate, stalled, profile change, bitrate 5 megabits per second, and bitrate 8 megabits per second. One more thing I forgot was to set the options here to hidden, so let me do that. So the shape, the pages are not shown as tabs in the visual overview. And the upside of this will be that we will have a tab control, and just like the rest of visual overview, as long as we do not load or click the tab, it will not load the page either. So the Visio file, of course, will be parsed, but every piece of data that we want to show eventually will not be loaded. So it's a lazy loading tab control, as you would want probably. So let me save it and take a look if I did everything correctly. So my pages are correctly hidden. This is the original version, and then this is the version I created. And you can see it loads in the trend graph like this. I could change the background to white. It's not really the biggest difference here. The main thing though is that maybe you want a different kind of tab control. So we offer two styles, which means if I add an option here and set it to tab control style 2 equals 2, of course. It will take a control style that is more similar to what we had earlier. And this is what it looks like. Now, if you're still not happy with this, because this is loading things as they come up, as you can see, and once it's loaded, you can really switch quickly between them. So that's very intentional. If you're not happy, for instance, with the fact that the casing is like this, or the style of the tabs or whatever, you could still create your own custom tab control. But I would recommend not doing it with show height conditions, but rather maybe still use the separate VDX pages, but only embed one. And then when we want to show the right one, so you reuse these buttons, and we want to show the right one, we just embed the right VDX page. So you set this VDX page to the value of the variable with the var placeholder, and then the page can switch every time you click a button. That will work. The only thing is that each time you switch, if you switch back, it will need to reload because it will replace the entire page every time. So that's another option. I personally prefer using the out-of-the-box tab control that is provided. Another thing on this page I want to note is that 9/10 of this page are the same, it seems, between the main and the counties. So you can see here, this top part is the same, this is the same. Sidebar and the header, of course, are the same. So here again, we could reuse this and put it in a separate page, like we did with the side panel. The upside here is that we can put it in the same visual overview, so it doesn't have the downside of having to load another Visio file. So really, there's no downsides here to actually taking all of this, putting it in a separate page, and doing a VDX page embed. All right, that's it for the fixed wireless access Visio. For the last two visual overviews of the one I got sent in by Tommy, I don't really have that many new remarks, so I will go over them rather quickly. Let's take a look. So the first one we want to look at is the infrastructure overview, which is in a view further down. So I'll just search for it and let it load. The same remark can be made again regarding the tab control here. It works in the same way. We could rebuild it in the same way. So either by using the out-of-the-box tab control from DataMiner or by using a custom tab control that you create by setting variables. My Visio looks like this, and the only remark I have here is that there are just two shapes here. They are linked, so they will be loaded into memory even though they're not in view. So preferably you just remove these. We don't need them anyway. Let me first duplicate the page. And just remove them, and it won't make a difference in the eventual overview because we can't see them here anyway. So there's no difference here between this one and that one. And then the final thing, final visual overview we have is the InHome one. Again, the same tab control, so could make a remark there. Here we have a slightly different side panel, so depending on what we want to reuse in the side panel, we might leave some things out eventually. Like the alarms are not in here, and the other buttons, like the channel service infrastructure, those alarm counts are also not in there. So it's really up to you how you do your reusability here. And then a great thing we have in here, I can show you because there are no InHome alarms currently, but I can show you on the Visio itself, is also a relatively, well, I call it relatively new, but it's probably already exists for a while. Functionality is the text trimming. Let me see if I can get my Visio, yes, to show. Let me use the drawing explorer again to get to this children shape. It's this one, open it up. And then the first field here. If I can find it. Actually, probably all of them use it. Yeah, it's defined on the overarching children shape. we have the text style, which sets the text trimming to word ellipsis. So you can also use character ellipsis here, which means it will end in 3 dots if there is no more room. So if we have someone who resized their side panels to make it not fit anymore, or the parameter description is too long, it will apply the 3 dots you see if there's no room enough to make a full word. So it will replace that word with 3 dots and everything behind it. So that's also some very nice small things you could do to improve your visual overview. So let me just recap a couple of the most useful tips after going through this entire solution. It was a really nice solution, a lot of work. The best tips I have for you, both from what Tommy already does and what I found, is to try to enhance your reusability and your maintainability. Group shapes together that link to the same elements, and either use the group to show the element, or don't group them and use variables to refer to them. Try to reuse those side panels, put them in VDX page embedded shapes, so you can actually easily maintain them and change some things. Already great here was the hover type geometry, showing the nice hovers, and also the theming you already have on your pages. The Trends Graphs no wildcard option is also one I would recommend using for almost every setup where you want to show a specific table cell and not go to the server to resolve a wildcard. Then we have the tab controls, which are often done, not just in this setup, with show height conditions and variables that are being set by the buttons. Could still use the variables, but I would recommend embedding a VDX page, or even multiple VDX pages, which allows you to completely eliminate the tab control building that you need to do in Visio. So then you can use the cube tab control, and we have 2 kinds of styles there as well to help you out. And then the final thing was the text trimming that I really loved. Use that whenever you feel like you're not sure how big the text will be or how the scaling will be once your end users use it. So use that text trimming so everything looks nice and doesn't overlap. Looking at this solution, I cannot do anything but give Tommy the full 250 points, DevOps points for his account, because of the amount of features used, but also the size of the solution as a whole, and for being my guinea pig in this video series. He will also be getting the updated versions of these visual overviews and Visio files, so he can use whatever he wants to from my feedback. And yeah, if you have anything you want to send in for me, if you want feedback on your visual overview, if you want to earn DevOps points, please send me your visual overview solution. Don't worry too much about what you have to send in. Just send a mail to visual.overview@skyline.be and we can figure out the details together. I hope you enjoyed this new video series. Please do leave some feedback, whether this is useful or not. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.